Okay. I've seen this for a few days ago, actually. This guy, Kermel Ahmed, is a tit. That's what I want to say first thing. But this is quite interesting. Tesco faces a record 4 billion equal pay claim. Could this destroy this company? Because I find it interesting that this pay claim, which is equal, for equal pay, this woman here, listen to the nonsense. I'm not going to play because I'll probably get my ass. Pam Perkins says the men's and women's jobs are of equal value. Just look at the face of this big lump of shit. She works on the checkout. Okay? She works on the checkout, which is quite interesting. Tesco is facing Britain's largest ever equal pay claim and a possible bill running to £4 billion. Thousands of women who work in Tesco stores could receive back pay totaling £20,000 if the legal challenge demanding parity with men who work in the company's warehouses is successful. Lawyers say hourly paid female store staff earn less than men even though the value of the work is comparable. Remember the word comparable. It's not the same. It's not comparable. It's comparable. Okay. Remember, the women who are working at the tills and the men who are at the back stacking pallets, moving around, wine, boxes of baked beans, using the pallet lifter, unloading the lorries that come in. Okay, this is what they're comparing. Tesco said it worked hard to ensure all staff were paid fairly and equally. Pam Paula Lee of a particular Lila Day solicitors told the BBC it was time for Tesco to tackle the problem of equal pay for work of equal worth. So what they're saying is that because the women work in that store, they should get the same pay as the men at the back, because it doesn't matter what they're doing at the back. They all work in the same store, so they all should get the same pay. Even though the women who sit at the front don't do or exchange jobs to work at the back. If they do, the men come at the front as well. In other words, they do a swap. So if the women are working at the front and the men are at the back, and then maybe at the end of the month, they do a swap, I would be in support. Of course, you've got to get the same pay. Because if you're working at the back for that month in the warehouse, I expect you to get the same as what the guys would when they're working in the back. And when the guys are working in the front, their pay is adjusted to the same pay level as what you're getting for that month working at the till. But they're not saying that. They're saying they should get, even though they work at the front and the guys work at the back, in all weathers, whether it's cold, whether it's sunshine, whether it's raining, the women are working inside, indoors, where there's warmth, where there's during the winter, where there's air conditioning during the summer. Okay, let's continue. Her firm has been contacted by more than 1,000 Tesco staff and will this week take the initial legal steps for 100 of them. The most common rate for women is £8 an hour, whereas for men, the hourly rate can be as high as £11 an hour, she added. Right. So is that the same when because I've been to Tesco's and I see there are sometimes guys sitting there. Are they getting, if they're getting £11 an hour and the women are getting 8, that's wrong. Because I don't believe that's what, because Tesco is a big firm. It doesn't do that kind of thing. It will pay the men and the women exactly the same. Okay, so to me, the so-called discrepancy is obvious. But let's continue to read. The cleaners versus binmen. What is work of comparable value? Since 1984, workers doing jobs that require comparable skills have similar levels of responsibility and are of comparable worth to the employee, should also be rewarded equally according to the law. Thus, if you are a cleaner lugging mops and buckets up and down staircases, you may have a case for being paid the same as co-workers collecting rubbish bins. It doesn't matter whether the cleaner or the shop worker is male or female, they may still have a case to see their pay up to match colleagues doing other jobs. But in practice, many of the poorer paid jobs have been done by women. Okay. Now, the fact that a cleaner is in the office, the cleaner, if her job is comparable to the dustbin man or the rubbish collector, why don't she transfer or ask to be transferred to be a dustbin collector? Because that is complete and total shit. Listen to this. Thus, if you're a cleaner lugging mops and buckets up and down staircases, you may have a case for being paid the same as co-workers collecting rubbish bins. Have you been outside in the cold when it's snowing, when it's raining, when it's boiling hot, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning that these guys start? They start early, some of them, and they work through the day. Okay, because of depending on the traffic and all this kind of business. They are carrying rubbish on their backs, lifting them up, pushing them on the trolley, put them onto the machine. It then gets flung in. Back in the day, before the push trolley ones, they used to have to carry that load on their back. The dustbin men then used to have to carry that load. I didn't see women doing that when I was young in the 60s, because the men carried the rubbish. Today, it's still a dirty, filthy job. Okay, I'm not saying cleaners who clean toilets are not experiencing. Of course they are. But in comparison to what these guys are, they're picking up rubbish. They're picking up, there's, all sorts of dirty and disgusting, in the bins, babies' nappies, all that kind in there. The smell. I mean, when I'm sitting in my car, I can smell the dirt. And yet they're saying that they can compare their jobs with that. They should get exactly the same as them. I mean, I don't know what time these female cleaners work. What time do they start in the morning? Is it 8 o'clock? Till 4? Some of these dustbin men are at the depot at very early in the morning. But it doesn't matter. You see, they're not interested in that. They don't want men to get any more money. And already said, if you get there early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, because that's when you're supposed to start, or 6 o'clock for the dustbin men, it doesn't matter. They don't care about it. Yet the women are working indoors in an environment that is clean in comparison and is out of the weather. So if it's pissing down with rain, if it's snowing, If it's 100 degrees outside, these dustbin men are out there. What about the women? The women cleaners, they're indoors. So, but now they are getting the same pay as those guys outside. Why are the dustbin men not going on strike and saying, stuff you? Why should you get the same pay as us? Why are they not going on strike and saying, this is not right? We're doing better, harder work, tougher work. They cannot be compared. And if they can be compared, those women should be coming out and they should swap with the men. The men will be happy to go inside and clean. And let the women come outside and do those work. I don't think they would do. They wouldn't swap. They wouldn't swap. I wouldn't want to be a dustbin man, a rubbish man. I wouldn't want to do it. Someone's got to do it. They're out in the cold, they're out in the bitter and sunshine. These people are inside. The women the cleaners are inside. And yet they say, but in practice, many of the poorer paid jobs have been done by women. What poorer paid jobs? Give us examples. You're not giving us any examples. This silly Ms. Lee said it was a problem that had been hiding in plain sight for years, and that while there was no suggestion that Tesco had initially been underpaying women, historical divisions between men and female roles had led to the pay differential. What's she talking about? Just complete. She's saying, oh, Tesco's are not. She's not accusing them of purposely doing this, but historically it's happened. Bullshit. You are accusing them of it quietly doing this. Okay. I'm not interested. I don't care about that historical nonsense of just trying to twist the whole thing. We believe an inherent bias has allowed store workers to be underpaid over many years. In terms of equal worth to the company, there really should be no argument that workers in stores, compared to those working in the depots, contribute at least equal value to the vast profits made by Tesco. So what they're saying is, these guys who are out in all the weathers, they're dealing with lorries that come in. Well, we'll deal with that. Because at the end of the day, they're saying that a woman who sits with their fat ass in front of a till, the machine does virtually all the work for her, toppling up the amount that needs to be asked for to pay for. Okay, she doesn't bag the stuff. Sometimes Tesco used to have someone else do the bagging for the customer, but generally it's the customer does the bagging themselves and puts them into the trolley. She sits there and just tots it up, and then the next person comes along. So she doesn't do any movement. She's not moving anywhere. She's sitting on her fat ass. Whereas the guys in the back are moving around fairly constantly. If a lorry comes in, it has to be offloaded. The lorry man is not going to wait forever. Immediately it comes in, the guys have to go out and offload that lorry. And not only that, the lorry man doesn't help them. Because the lorry man, it depends on the firm. The lorry man, if he's not helping them, it's because he's not insured by his company for him to do that work. So he sits in the lorry or watches the job being done by the guys from Tesco's. So they offload the pallets using the machines that are there, and then brings them into the store, and then they get all stacked. That's what their job is to do in the warehouse. That's why it's called a warehouse. They're not sitting around all just having tea and coffee all day long. At some point, they are doing work. And if that lorry gets unloaded, another one could suddenly turn up behind that. The guy doesn't say, "Oh, sorry, I'm not going to offload it now. I'm going to go and have my lunch." He offloads it. And then when he finishes, he may be going in to then go and sit down and have it. Suddenly the phone goes, "Oh, another lorry's coming behind that second one that just came in." So that's a third lorry comes in. He then has to stop what he's doing, go downstairs, if there's nobody available, and get on with unloading that lorry. We believe an inherent bias has allowed store workers to be underpaid over many years. This is an example of why I believe that women should not be employed in work. They really shouldn't be employed. Companies now need to start looking at employing men more and more and more, because women are becoming a liability for companies. £4 billion. £4 billion. If this was men only, that were trying to compare themselves with the guys in the back office of a company, they'd be laughed at they wouldn't even be able to get this to court. For this to be going to court today just shows you the amount of power that the bastard, evil feminazi has in our society today. The feminists are going to destroy Britain. The feminists are going to destroy Canada. The feminists are going to destroy America. The feminists are going to destroy Australia. You can guarantee the feminists are going to destroy the Western world. And then what will happen in the Middle East and parts of the developing world that are undesirable will pour in, and they will take over a lot of the West, and the West will be destroyed. The West will be destroyed. Millions of people run away from the developing world, parts of the developing world, to come to Britain, to come to America, to come to Australia, to come to New Zealand, because these countries have all been developed. They're all, yes, by the white man. The highest IQ generally across the board has been the white man. Many people don't want to admit this. Many people don't like this, but these are the facts. The white man has a work ethic that people in parts of Africa, parts of India, parts of China have only started to begin to emulate. The white man is the gold standard at which people should be aiming for. I don't care about what's gone on in the past. It's happened, and a lot of it was evil, but it was a necessary evil in order to get to where we are now. We're all living in very nice, comfortable, air-conditioned, warm houses, heated home, central heating homes. We can get fans to cool us in the summer, very nice. Back in the days in the 18th century, back in the day, even back in the 60s and the 70s, if you see the environment that people lived in, it was extraordinary. I remember when my mother and my parents, my dad came, my dad insisted on having a bath every day. The Brits didn't have a bath every day. They had once a week. Once a week. I'm talking about a proper bath. If they had a bath, it would be a hand wash, with a cloth towel. But to have a real bath, that was done once a week. So back in the days, in the 60s, the smell that must have gone about must have been horrendous. Not just from the geezers, from the women, because a lot of women didn't bath for a week or even 2 weeks sometimes, probably. It was common. It was a common thing, because many you listen to many elderly people. They say, "Oh yeah, during the war we didn't have a bath for maybe a week, 2 weeks, or a month because of water shortage and things like that during the war." And so I even heard of stories when kids during World War II, they would wrap the kids up with cardboard around their stomach, they'd have their shirt, and they would go to bed like that. They wouldn't have baths maybe once a week, once a month, or so, I don't know. And then periodically they would take off the cardboard, especially I think during the winter. This was obviously done, and some of these kids used to have lice on their body. This is a story, I've heard this before. This is So, Britain and America and all these countries have advanced. Yes, it has been on the backs of other people, but Egypt did the same thing. It became a technologically advanced place off the backs of other people. Rome, the Romans did exactly the same, advanced off the backs of other people. The Greeks did the same thing, off the backs of other people. So it's unfortunately slavery has always been down millennium. Genghis Khan did the same thing. It's always been like that, and it's only recently, in the last few years, that slavery slowly has been completely, mostly eradicated. It still occurs in parts of the Arabian world, and everybody knows that. And they were probably the originators of. Not they weren't the originators. I mean, slavery's been going way, way back. Anyway, but this this pay thing is really, really, really annoying me. It really annoys me that people are not using logic to really see that this is nonsense. Okay, let's continue. Uh, Here we go. The law has been there since 1984. You can compare with a different job. Doesn't mean that this is right law. It means it's nonsense. Just because that law came in 1984 doesn't mean anything to to a lot of people. It is it really worth setting up your own business to employ people? I wouldn't. My advice to people out there: if you're going to set your own business, by all means. But you know what? Don't even bother employing people, especially women, because you're just going to find yourself in. If you employ guys and you employ guys only, at some point or other, the government is going to be after you, and they will shut your business down because you're not employing women. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I'm saying? Unless you're a building firm, then you might be able to get away with it. But even the building firms are being, harangued and to employ more women. But even then, the women don't want to go into these jobs. The majority of time, I've yet to see a female carpenter. I've yet to see a female electrician. I've yet to see a female plumber. I have seen a female painter. Okay, I've seen a female painter, and I've seen women doing surveying work. But why are they not doing the hard, the bricky? Why are they not doing the plumbing work? By all means, start training a lot of these women and get them into the building trade, or even get them to be self-employed so they can become plumbers themselves. They can, be female plumbers. I'm a female plumber. They shouldn't have to say that. They just say, "I'm a plumber. Do you need a job done?" Lyle Day said that up to 200,000. Let's go. Sorry, that's 34 years to put your house in order. This is a silly little witch telling Tesco's what they should be doing. That's 34 years of having the advantage of paying unequally. I mean, what's the advantage of paying? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. As everybody said, wouldn't it be cheaper to employ women at a lower wage than men? And that would save the company even more money. You don't need to employ women. Men, you could get rid of women and just employ women. Put them in the warehouse. Let them run the warehouse. 34 years of you making pay decisions and making financial decisions. 34 years hiding what is in open sight. What a load of shit. Dramatic. This is just complete shit that this woman has written. She's just talking shit. Really, really talking rubbish. I hate this particular idiot said that up to 200,000 supermarket workers could be affected. The majority of them women. Initial claims have been lodged with the Conciliation Service, ACAS, The first stage is what is likely to be a lengthy legal process through the employment tribunal system, which could last several years. Why should it last several years? It's very obvious that what these women are claiming is nonsense. And the very simple thing to do is say, okay, swap, remove the men from the back, put women only in there, put the men at the front, and then pay the women the same, and reduce the men's pay to what the women were getting paid. Very simple problem to solve. Initial claims have been lodged. If even a small proportion of women are successful, the bill for tesco would be significant. So the feminist movement are trying to destroy this 100-year-old, and this, I think, it's about 100 odd years. Is it? No. Sorry, it may not be that old, but I'm thinking of sort of Marks and Spencer's. Birmingham City Council is now liable for £1 billion in payments after settling an equal pay claim from women employed as cleaners, cooks, and carers. Their pay was below men in comparable jobs, such as bin collectors, road workers. Now, can you see the difference? Cleaners, cooks, carers, bin collectors, road workers. All these jobs, cleaners, cooks, and carers, are indoors. Bin collectors and road workers are outdoors. So the fact that these road workers can be working when it's raining, can be working when it's snowing, can be working when it's 120 degrees outside. All these people, the cooks, the cleaners, are all indoors, whether it come rain, come shine, come snow. They'll be indoors. But they're now going to get paid the same pay as these guys who are out in the cold weather, who are out in the warm weather. Unbelievable. This company is also fighting a similar action against rival supermarket groups, Asda and Sainsbury's, on behalf of floor shop workers. So this company is making I think the Royal Solicitors are making a nice amount of money from these companies with this nonsense. If they lose, they're not. No one's going to. They're going to get, this bastard's going to get their money, even with the nonsense they came out with, that soliloquy of rubbish that woman came out with. Okay, in 2016, an employment tribunal ruled that 9,500 women who work at Asda on checkouts or stacking shelves, these two jobs, could compare themselves to higher paid men who work at warehouses. So the fact that men are working in warehouses in a more dangerous environment, have they asked how many men have been injured? Have they actually got out the accident book and looked how many men have been injured in the warehouse or even killed? How many women have been injured or killed in the store as checkouts or dealing with stacking shelves? How many? This, again, no research has been done there. Okay. Asda is currently appealing the ruling. Tesco said that all their staff could progress equally and were paid fairly, whatever their gender or background. We are unable to comment on a claim that we've not received, a spokeswoman said. Tesco has always been a place for people to get on in their career, regardless of their gender, background, or education, and we work hard to make sure all our colleagues are paid fairly and equally for the job they do. It doesn't matter about that. Women today are only interested in paid equally, even if they do less work. An example is tennis. The female women team at Wimbledon now get £1 million. I think it's £1 million, or it might be less, for playing 3 sets. On the other hand, the men's team play 5 sets and still get £1 million. Because in 2006, I think it was, when Wimbledon conceded to the hags, especially Serena Williams, women were getting paid in proportion to the amount of sets that they actually used calculations to work out the pay that women would get when they played 3 sets in comparison to the men. So the women weren't being paid unfairly. They were being paid fairly to the amount of work they were doing. They were only playing 3 sets, and the men were playing 5. Now, because the women get £1 million, they're not complaining. Not one of those women complaining. But recently, Djokovic took his male players, because I think he's the head of the men's association, or whatever little union they've got amongst themselves, into an office. They threw the press out. The press were not allowed there to discuss their grievances they had with I think it's the APT, or with the Men's Tennis Association, because they feel that they should be paid more for what they bring into the game. Because at the end of the day, the statistics have shown that the men's game brings in double what the women do. Double for the men's association. Yet the men are not getting the same. They're getting the same basic pay as the women are, and women are now doing less work. The feminist movement wants that kind of model throughout the workplace in Britain, in America, in Australia, in New Zealand, and in in Canada, and in Sweden, and in parts of Europe that are willing to accept this nonsense. And they're going to get it. They're going to get it. They're going to capitulate to this, and because this is what they want to see as normal. Women will be paid more for doing less work, whereas women are getting paid proportionately to the amount of work that they're doing. Proportionately, I mean, look, a guy who works as a labourer at on the building site is probably getting less than a cleaner working for the council. Yet, can he not get the same pay as her? But he won't, because he's self-employed. A labourer will not get the same. I'm sure doesn't get. If he does, I'll be surprised if he gets more than the woman working as a cleaner for the council. I'll be surprised. The cleaner is stating that she should get the same pay as a gardener, a person who works out in the garden in the cold, the freezing cold and the dirt. Here we go. 2 workers for Tesco. This is it. This is discrepancies. 2 workers for Tesco told the BBC they wanted fair treatment, arguing that their jobs in the stores were as demanding as warehouse jobs. Nobody's saying that sitting at the till is not demanding. But you're not exactly breaking your back. You're sitting on your fat ass. You're picking up a tin of baked beans. You're picking up one of Tesco's finest tin of baked beans. You then push it over the infrared scanner. It then bleeps up 16 or 20 or 30p. You then put it down to one side. You get the next item, scan it through, put it down. You get and so on. I'm not saying it's not. It's not fantastic work. But how can you compare that job to people who work in the back? In the back, there is no heating. And if there is, it's probably high up radiators that don't really throw out enough heat. But they do a very minimal job. The warehouse is open at the back. They have plastic sheeting usually, at best. They have to push probably, crates of of drink, or pork meat, or whatever it is they've got to do. Pallets have to be moved around. Boxes have to be lifted and taken and put into the back. Yet these women will be at that till for a set period of time and then go out for a break. Then they come back. Their job is not comparable to the guys that work in the warehouse. But they want the law to say, and they will force the law, because we now live in a Disneyland of nonsense that is skewed wholly to the feminist movement. The feminist movement has grabbed its claws into our society in a big way. Pam Jenkins has been working for Tesco for 26 years. I think that we should be brought up to the men's level, she told me. Why? You're not doing the same job. But you want to be paid the same as them for doing a job that is less arduous. You're sitting on your fat ass. Because you see the video of her, look at she's got to that stage because she doesn't move. She sits on her fat ass doing the scan. Maybe she does some of the stacking, but that's it. But she wants to. She compares herself to the men who are outside in the cold, in the rain, in the sunshine, heavy sunshine at times. I think that we should be brought up to their level. Obviously, the jobs are slight. Listen to this, boys and geezers I'm talking to. Obviously, the jobs are slightly different, but to put it bluntly, they are of equal value. Unbelievable. The fact, she says, obviously the jobs are slightly different, but they are of equal value. We think that we should be brought up to their level. So she's conceded that they are different. They're not the same, but she says slightly. I'll tell you what the slightly is. I've already mentioned. She sits on her fat ass. She scans in food in a controlled environment that is either warm in the winter, nice because it's got to be for the customers, or it's air conditioned loveliness in the summer. Again, this is for the customers, but they enjoy the benefits of that. How much carrying do they do throughout the day? And if she does do the stacking, remember, it's inside. It's on the shelves, which again is air conditioned during the summer, is lovely and warm during the winter. But she doesn't see that huge difference. She says it's slightly, whereas the men, it's pissing down outside. The lorries come in. You've got to offload that lorry. It's sunshiny outside, 120 degrees. You've got to offload that lorry. It's freezing cold outside. And it may be snowing. But you've got to offload that lorry that's come in. And when you've done that, if another lorry comes in, you can't suddenly say, I'm going to stop because it's now my break. Those guys actually have to unload that lorry because of the fact that is on time and it needs to be emptied. Now, maybe what happens if they do that, one after another comes in, that time that we're supposed to have gets put into lieu, or they get paid that extra for doing that work during that time. Those guys are putting themselves by not taking a break when they should do. If they're supposed to have a break at 1 o'clock and a lorry comes in, and then they spend the next hour unloading that lorry, it could be 2 o'clock before they have something to eat, or they can rest. Listen to this. We deal with customers. So what? They, the men, don't have to. Here we go. Here we go. This. So they deal with customers. The men don't have to. Even though the men are out in the back, in the cold, in all sorts of weather, the men don't have to. You took that job on. You were happy to take the job on to face the customer, to do the till work. If you weren't happy with it, find another job somewhere else. Maybe working in a back office where you don't have to deal with customers. But you took that job on. We deal with customers. The men, the men, don't have to. We load. We take the stock and we load the stock. They take it off the lorry and we load it onto the shelves. So they take it off the lorry. So that means that when they take it off the lorry, they have to know how to use the machinery that's there. It doesn't take an awful lot, but you still have to know how to use the machinery. You have to go on a day's course or a few hours course to learn how to use that trolley properly, because people have been killed or injured badly because of this, and that's why now they have to have courses. So you now have to use that trolley properly. There's the danger of pallets falling on people's legs, falling on top of them, getting injured. She didn't mention those. She didn't mention the injuries that happened to some of the men there, because they didn't mention. She hasn't mentioned that they. What about the accident book? Let's bring out the accident book and see how many people have been injured in the store and how many people have been injured outside in the warehouse. Let's go. Women have been fighting for equal rights, and their voices have been heard for 100 years. We are not just doing it for us. There are many people out there. No, you're doing it for yourselves and for women only. We are just trying to put things right. What are you trying to put things right? And it's a shame we are still having to fight in this day and age. Look, all right, let's continue to read, and I'll say what I'm saying now. Kim Emmett has been working for 23 years for Tesco. Now listen, although we think we have equal rights, there are times when there are discrepancies and you can't explain them. Let's read that again. Although we think we have equal rights, there are times where there are discrepancies and you cannot explain them, she said. I think Tesco are one of the many companies that aren't addressing the fact that women seem to be still paid less. Miss Lee said that Tesco was a good employer, which you are now trying to destroy with your nonsense claims that your job is the same, although slightly different than the men's. Signing up to a number of gender equality projects over a number of years. But she said the company, along with many others, were still failing to reward people equally. How do you compare jobs? The criteria that courts use to compare jobs in these cases aren't precisely predefined. But the starting point is to send in an independent expert to do a job evaluation study, which will be a woman. So they'll send one woman to the other company, and another woman to. So you can guarantee that this will be done equally because they'll send a woman. That experts score each of the roles under consideration, including considerations such as how demanding they are physically, mentally, and emotionally. If they involve working in the cold or facing customer complaints, or if they require technical know-how, qualifications, responsibility for other staff, or enhanced communications that will push up their value. If the roles are compatible, the case can be then go to an equal tribunal, but there's still scope for the employee to argue that there's another reason to pay, that the pay differs. If workers in these jobs have been there longer, or have been professional, or have more professional experience, for example, while individuals can bring cases, it's much easier to bring such claims if you are part of a group. So this is the nonsense. They get to a group so they can do what they need. You need momentum behind the claim that opens the doors. This stupid dumbass from this solicitor's whatever spokesperson. It forces them to be transparent and give information to a tribunal, which may not get on a one-to-one basis. This never ceases to remind me this kind of nonsense that this is really just nonsense, and why it's been allowed to go to court, I don't know. Why the union are backing this, I don't know. Because I'll tell you one thing: if I was still in the union now and they were backing this, I'd leave that union. I would stop paying my stubs and tell them to get stuff. This is nonsense. This shouldn't be happening. Okay, this shouldn't be happening, because this will destroy a perfectly good company that thousands of people work for. What? Because these two witches are trying to look for a payday, because that's what they're looking for. They want that 20 grand. They want that lump sum. That's what they're looking for, and they're doing it without any shame. They have no honor in themselves. They're doing this because they see a payday. They see a payday. And you think the thing that annoys me about the BBC, why haven't they spoken to men who work? We've had everything. We've had two women. We've heard them. They say, "Why don't they speak to the warehouse?" They haven't done that. This is typical BBC reporting. I never used to think that the BBC was. I thought the BBC was for equality. I thought BBC was down the line. I've now realised that they themselves have not done their research. They haven't gone and spoke to the men and say, "Let's see what you do of the day, and let's see what the women do of the day." If that's the case, the solution is very simple: get more women working in the warehouse. Swallows. Get more women working in the warehouse, get more men working at the front. They get paid the same as the women at the front. Those women at the back will get the same equal pay as the men. There are women who will work in that warehouse who will not break their back picking up big boxes. They won't. You won't do it. They'll get someone to do it for them, or someone to help. They'll try and get the guys to come and help them carry those boxes. And those men who do, if there are women working there, should never help those women under any circumstances. Look after yourself. If it's a really big, awkward box that needs to be carried, that's different. But if you've got aids there, trolleys that you can push, and machines, but all this kind of business, then you do it yourself. If you can carry a few boxes yourself, you carry it yourself. Don't look for anybody else to help you. You do your job. Because I hear through other people that there are women do ask out, "Oh, can you help us with these boxes?" And it's like, well, and the guys won't even question. They'll help them carry them and make themselves look big. When really they're not helping themselves. They should tell them, "No, you get paid the same as me. You pick up your own box." I really get annoyed with these stories, and I'm getting sick and tired. If I'm going to make this statement to you, they will win this case. I'm hoping they don't win it. I really do. Let me go back to Asda. Let me see this ad in 2016 with Asda. Let's click through to that. That's quite interesting. Asda workers made up equal pay claim battle. So this is 9,000 of these women. An employment tribunal has ruled that the women who mainly work at checkouts or stacking shelves. These are indoor jobs, out of the cold, out of the rain, out of the snow, and out of the beating sun in the summer, can compare themselves to higher paid men who work at warehouses. Extraordinary. And that's why I'm saying Tesco are going to lose that case. They're going to be billions of pounds. And as a company, I don't know whether they're going to be able to recover from this at all. I hope if it loses the case, it will have to start shedding jobs and shutting down the many Tesco little stores that you see around the whole of the country. Shut them down. That's what it's going to do. It'll have to. The women feel they are paid less than others, despite their roles being of equal worth. So they're saying that their job is as important as the men, even though the men are out in the dirt, the sun, the cold, the wind, the rain. They feel that they're working indoors, their job is of equal worth to men. That goes to show you the courts are made up of puffed up old farts who've never ever done a hard day's work. They've never dug a trench in there in lifetime. They may have been a gardener doing their little, in their big mansions, doing a little bit of gardening for their roses and all that kind of business. But they've never been out in the street, dug up a street, or gone underground manholes or places like that. I don't see many of those judges have done that. I've not seen many of them. Many of them are Eton or Oxford educated muppets, tossers of society. Asda said it continued to strongly dispute the claims. Good for you. The difference in pay between the predominantly female staff who work in and the mainly male staff who work in distribution centres is between £1 and £3 an hour. The lawyers made the claim yesterday. So this is what these bitches are complaining about. Between 1 and 3. Okay. If the claims are successful, it could mean workers recovering more than 100 million in back pay going back to 2002 and pay rises in the future. So they want to obviously bankrupt this company, destroy this company. What good would that do? They're not even saying, okay, let's start from 2016 or 2017. We do it from that way. It's not ideal, but it would be better than trying to bank up the company. But they don't care about that because they're dummies. If Asda says agree to this, you think they're going to have their job? They're going to have to close businesses down. Close their businesses down. If the claims are successful, it could, far-reaching implications. This is a dramatic victory for the workers we represent. Have you noticed it's always women lawyers that seem to be taking up these cases? Always women. A lawyer in the employment team. Again, this is the same company as the one that's dealing with Tesco's, going against Tesco, who is representing the ASDA. So this is the women in this firm. This must be a female firm. Okay. ASDA tried to argue that because the shops and distribution centres were in different locations with different pay arrangement, that ASDA could pay the men what they like. This is what she's saying, that ASDA could pay the men what they liked. There is a difference of only maybe £1 to £2 to £3. So this is working class men who are being harangued, harassed by the feminist bastards that are in society today. As this tried, here we go. However, the Employment Tribunal found that ASDA, the employer of both men and women, could have made sure that there was equal pay between men and women if they wanted to, but chose not to. They chose not to because they, as a company, looked at what these women were doing in comparison to what the men were doing, which is out in the back, in the cold, in the rain, whatever the weather, to keep the back office stocked up. What ASDA should have done is say, you know what we'll do? We'll remove the men from the back and we'll only employ women in the back from now on. Then you could argue the toss between the two of you. Because I'm sure that if you had in the back office in one depot, women only, those women in the back will realise that they are actually doing harder work, dirtier work, nastier work than those women at the front. And then they would understand what the men are having to do. But they don't care about that. They're not interested in that. This is all the propaganda of the far left of society. The judicial system is of the far left in this country. It's no longer impartial. However, the Employment Tribunal found that ASDA, the employer, etc. I've already read that. This judgment will have far-reaching implications on other supermarket equal pay claims, including those we are bringing on behalf of around 400 Sainsbury workers who are in a similar situation. But ASDA said the outcome of the tribunal was a technical issue and did not determine the eventual outcome of the case. The tribunal has yet to consider whether the jobs are of equal value in terms of their demands, and hello. Okay, bye bye. Sorry about that. I just got a ring from my mum. Sorry, I'll start again. The tribunal has yet to consider whether the jobs are equal value in terms of their demands, and if some jobs are, only then will the tribunal move on to consider the reasons for the differentials, including the existence of different market rates in different industrial sectors of supermarket. Hold on, people. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Bye bye. Yeah. Bye bye. Sorry about that. I'm shouting, but the Britain yet to consider jobs. Only then will they move to etc. We continue to strongly dispute the claims being made against us. We believe that the demands of the job are very different and are considering our options for appeal. So, they say as to say that the jobs are different. They're not the same. You know. Um, Pay rates in stores differ from pay rates in distribution centres for legitimate reasons, including the different market rates for different jobs in different sectors. The ruling from the Manchester Employment Tribunal means that test cases will now be brought. Here we go. A woman. Here we go. Analysis. Emma Simpson, BBC business reporter. There's a lot of stake in this legal action, not just for Asda, but for lots of other retailers as well. Asda rightly points out that this preliminary hearing has only been ruled on whether jobs in a depot are comparable to those in the stores. It is now for another tribunal to consider whether jobs are of equal value, and it will go the ways of the feminist. I mean, there'll probably be a feminist woman who will be, ruling through it, and so it's a foregone conclusion. That's the way it's going to go. So, as I'm afraid of this case, they're going to lose a lot of money as a business. But every retailer with a distribution centre, as well as stores, will be watching this case. These idiots now have 9,000 claimants waiting in the wings. It hopes to bring at least one test case next year. That was 2017. The judge acknowledged the financial implications of the claims would be very great. This solicitor reckons, if successful, it could recover more than 100 million, going back more than 15 years. No wonder Asda will be fighting this all the way. No wonder Asda will be fighting this all the way. That's not surprising a woman would say that, seeing she feels she has a vested interest in this. Oh dear. My advice to a lot of men out there, don't employ women. Don't employ any women in your business. Okay, because you'll end up. I mean, I've already seen a YouTube of a guy who had a management business, and he just employed guys. He's only had men, but because of outside pressures, maybe from a company, a business, a government may have been contacted because they hear that this business is a male-only environment. Maybe they've been pressured into employing a female. They employed the female. She then made a sexual harassment case against one of the workers that used to work there. One of their best workers, the guy who owned the business, had to sack this guy because this girl threatened to take the business to court. So he was sacked. This girl is working in their business, and she's ruining their business, and he's trying to find ways of getting rid of this harpy out of his business. But he knows that if he does it, and it looks like revenge, his business will go under. Listen, my advice to you would shut the business down, collapse it, make everybody unemployed, then start the business up again, re-employ all the guys, and just don't employ her again. Done. Set up the business up in a different name. That's the way to do it. All this is getting to be very annoying. Equality to society. It's only equal when the feminists say it's equal. And until then, until this case is won by the feminists against Asda, they won't be satisfied. So I've said my piece. I think it's all nonsense. I've been on 59 minutes. I'm done. I'm gone. Now, how do I shut this down? So I'm just trying to find a way.